let's continue to make this a useful drawing for plan review, field install, pretty pipe. Right now, the way our drawings are set up, if we go check our layers, Springtat 1 and Springtat 2 are set so that they will not print. You can see them in the model space, but when you go and print these, whether it's to a PDF or the plotter for a physical piece of paper, you will not be able to see these lines. That's the way we want it. So if I gave you an example of that, Control P, let's make sure we draw a window around this thing, and just to hurry up and see it. No line piping. You've got our sizes, but you cannot see the connections. To fix that, we pretty pipe, and that tool is right here. Draw pretty pipes. Left click, and these, sometimes this color for the lines will be set to yellow. The issue is we don't want things to not show up correctly in the print. So have it set to white for the lines and the mains, and honestly I'm going to make that 2-inch width on the mains. The arm overs don't have any reason to be 1.5. Strange things, because this isn't our normal title block. We'll say OK, and right now it's asking you to select all objects. So if this were a building with multiple areas and I only wanted to select a certain area, I can draw my window and grab only what matters, or I could have hit right click and it would have pretty piped every piece of pipe it found. What I want to do is draw a window around this building. Left click, now right click or hit enter, and you can see we've highlighted basically our line piping. Now if I go back to print, and let's change this to something that's not so colorful. Preview. It did not remember, of course. We'll get into the right way to print in a moment, or not a moment. Now your piping can be seen. That's what we want. Pretty pipes on, didn't give me any errors. We need to put dimensions off of measurable objects for the installer to know where he's starting, and for the plan reviewer to know how far is that head off this wall so they can figure out the area per head. If you want to insert a dimension, come over to the left side, and this button here is the auto dim button. Left click, and let's just come to the very beginning. If the guy doesn't know where to start, none of this matters. So we're going to give him a dimension from this piece of pipe, and it's grabbing the center line, not the edges or any of that. The center line of pipe, and then it goes perpendicular to the wall. You left click, and now it's ready for you to just keep on drawing dimensions if you wanted to. But right now we want to hit enter and then fix this because you can't read it. Left click on the dimension and then simply grab that pick box. Turn off the ortho, F8. And now our reviewer, our installer, knows this piece of 4-inch needs to be hung 1'6" off this wall, and it needs to be 8 9 inches off the floor. Now they have a starting point. Let's left click here just to make sure, and then we're going to say make current so that we know we're in the right dimension layer, because that often happens that we're not. We're going to come up here to format, down to dimension style, left click, go in and hit modify, and we're going to change the arrow size to 5-inch, and click on text right here, and it's not going to let me. Darn it. The difference from one CAD file type to the other. Normally I can change both of these. That's unfortunate. The smaller this is, the cleaner it is. So you can see those just shrunk on me. I want this text to minimize as well. Alright, right here on your dimension toolbar, linear, left click, and we're going to pick the center of the riser, and we're going to measure it to the back wall. This also tells another part of the story of where does this system start. 1/6 off this wall, 1 foot off that wall, 8'9" in the air. They have X, they have Y, they have Z. They know exactly where to start. But we want to follow this system, and everywhere that it matters, we need to give a new dimension. So we are the same 1'6" off this wall till we hit this 90. The guy needs to know what this dimension is so that it gets installed in the right place should this wall be moved or the steel not be accurate. So he turns. Where does he stop and turn? He stops and turns at 4'5" off that wall. That stays typical, so we're not super worried about adding another dimension, but dummy proof is the word. So let's make it dummy proof, and from this endpoint to the perpendicular to this wall, let's drop 4'5" again. Should be pretty easy for the installer to locate these dimensions. Whole lot of dimensions will be done on every drawing. Even the small drawings, you might get surprised just how many dimensions we need to throw on here. Let's throw it from the bottom wall this time. If we show up to install this piping before these walls are built, they won't be there to measure off of. This wall on the outside has to be there if we're there hanging pipe already. So we know the installer can use the 6'6" number off of this wall, but not necessarily use the 3'6" off that wall. Try and avoid things overlapping and looking cluttered. And let's go ahead. We'll connect this to this, and then this to this. And here's a useful tool. Actually, I'll start over to show you the right way. If you have a long run that you need to dimension, I'm going to start right here on the wall, left click, not on the line, on that line. Hit enter so you finish your command. And now, if we come up here, we have two options, baseline and continuous. We don't want the baseline dimension, but I'll show you what that does. It will continue to measure off that same wall to a point that you specify. And notice it offsets so it keeps it clean. If we had to run a dimension such as that, that's one way to do it. This is not a project where you would want to run a baseline dimension so much. Let's start over, show you the other option. Auto dimension, left click, enter. Now click on continuous, and it takes off from where you left off. This one we can use. That will tell the installer how close these are line to line. We're going to keep this video a little shorter than the last. I'm going to show you how to measure heads, and then I'm going to let you fill in the rest of this office building with what I'm about to show you. So we're still in the dimensions layer. Important to be on the right layer. We're going to measure this head off of the two furthest walls. If you recall, we talked about spacing. What matters is X and Y. Which one is the furthest distance? We know we're closer to this wall. We know we're further from that wall. So let's measure this way. We know we're further from this wall. We know we're closer to that wall, so we're going to measure that way. Dimensions. Pick on the linear again. Center. Snap to center. Sprinkler head. Snap to perpendicular. and you can drop this in a place that is most fitting. This time I'm actually going to move that up here out of the way. And then we're going to do a linear dimension again, snap to center, pick the head, perpendicular, that wall. All right, now maybe you remember, maybe you don't. What would the area that this head is protecting be? Because the rooms, I believe, were 10 by 12. And simple math there, even I can do. 10 by 12 means that room is 120 square feet. But our head is not centered in the room. It's 7 feet this way, 6 feet that way. What do? Double both dimensions. So now it becomes 14 by 12. And, just so I don't look stupid, 168 feet, not 120. That's why it's important that these get dimensioned to the head off the wall for plan review. Same thing happens in this space. I need 2 dimensions off to the longest walls. And you can drag these wherever they look best. Repeat this in each of the offices, and you're going to repeat some form of it when you get to the hallway. Center. Let's go ahead and figure out that distance first. Let's use this head for the distance off that wall. Let's use this head for the distance off that wall. And you'll do at least one of these 3 heads on the front end. Because they all line up, anyone looking at the plan should be able to figure that out. 6'3". So give me dimensions in this space for these heads, dimensions for all the others. There are 2 heads in this room, but do not put more dimensions than you have to. When you get a set of architectural plans, they're very good at not giving you extra dimensions. And that means, if we click on linear, if I tell you the dimension of this head off of this wall, which is important, well, this dimension does not apply to this head. So I need to give you the linear dimension of this head off that wall. And now, top to bottom, all right, 6'2", 6'2". These heads line up. There's no reason for me to take that dimension and then carry it over to this head as well. Make sense? Hope so. Okay, finish throwing dimensions on this drawing, and then we will move on.